Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on Thursday, which it is Mighty Men Thursday, and we will have a special guest. His name is Chase K. Smith. Really looking forward to having him at the 8 o'clock hour. But until we get to that part of the show, let's start with our Kids Corner.
Quiet morning at the playground. Little Duck noticed something was wrong. Little Duck wanted to slide, but fear filled his heart. His feet felt shaky, and he felt nervous. Oki stayed close. He didn't rush. He didn't leave. Slowly, Little Duck took a deep breath and tried. That's how bravery begins. Come back for more calm stories with Wonder Kids 3D Stories.
Yeah, and it's always one of those things. Just remember to be brave, right? And Patty Cakes is joining us this morning. She says, Grand Rising founder, Grand Rising to you too. Ooh, excuse me, guys. A little bit of a sneeze there. Yes. So this week has been, I don't know, it's been interesting. It's been a lot of interesting news. You've got, unfortunately, with the shooter in, I want to say that's Brown University going on. They still haven't apprehended someone. They thought they had a person of interest and they released that person. And it's just, and again, it's mind boggling to me how someone could enter and specifically injure two different people and leave. And there's no motive. Um, they really don't know the why. And even this person approached other people and could have shot them and didn't. So to me, it's a very calculated incident. I'm really hoping that they get more to the bottom of what's actually happened in that situation and that parents and students can get answers because we forget, a lot of these individuals on that campus, they're under 21. A lot of them, they're freshmen and this is their, first year in college, or some of them may be graduate students. Hi, Jessica. Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us this morning from YouTube. So, in my opinion, it comes back to the safety of the children on campus, right? Our young people, and also the surrounding residents that live in that city. You know, what are you doing? And it's just like we're conducting the investigation. I'm like, okay. At this point, there needs to be a manhunt or something because you have no idea who this person is. And you have no idea how they were able to access the building, which you can only access if you have a security entry. So you should have a log, right, of who's entering and exiting the building. You should have cameras, at least inside the building, to let you know where people are at all times. And apparently they have over 800 cameras. It's very sad. Very, very sad. So, with that, we want to talk about honoring God with our body. So, God, please guard our thoughts. God, help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect my ears. Help me to listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect my eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please protect my mouth and help me to speak life. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help my hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone and especially to those who belong to the family in the faith. God, please protect my reproductive organs. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect my feet and help me walk in your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. So I read that daily so we have that focus for in the morning. And definitely let's keep the students of Brown University in prayer. And again, like I said, the residents in the surrounding community, please lift them up in prayer because I'm sure it's got to be very unnerving to live in a city and you don't know who committed this crime and you don't know where they are. So that has to be very unsettling for them, especially near the holidays when people want to be out and feel calm and relaxed and shopping and that I'm not sure, how they're feeling in that community, but for me personally, I wouldn't feel comfortable, right? I wouldn't, I'd have my guard constantly up. It's constantly, being stressed, right? So again, let's just pray for them and lift them up and keep them in prayer. And so, one of the first videos that I wanted to start with from Righteous Perspective, and I've played his videos before. This one's an interesting one, and it's about identity politics. And I definitely want to leave it open for conversation. It's like, what do you guys think? Are people burnt out on identity politics, right? Whether you're male, female, your sexual orientation, the race that you identify with or ethnicity, you know, your religious beliefs, even, right? Is everybody really to the point where they're tired of identity politics, where politicians that are using it are really, they've worn it out to the point where people are like, we don't really care. We want better policies, right? I'm hoping that that's the case, right? That people stop using identity politics because in part of the video, it's like, yeah, I'll just vote for you because you're black. I mean, even when I was running for president, people would say that, and I'd be like, no, don't do that. Don't vote for me because I'm black or because I'm a woman. Vote for me because you agree with the policies that I want to put forward to make better changes for the country. Do not vote for me because of my gender, right? Or my ethnic background. Like, don't do it. Please don't do that. So, again, let's get into the video, but it is a very interesting conversation.
Waiting for this moment. I have been waiting for an election between a black Democrat and a black Republican because now Democrats will actually have to show policy. They will not be able to use one of their greatest weapons, which is identity politics by race. They cannot say, oh, the race is white Republicans, because now that Republican is a black man. This Senate race, I know it's still early and it hasn't officially kicked off yet, but it's going to be between Jasmine Crockett and Wesley Hunt, two black people. All right? We are about to see how people will put identity politics over real policy. We are going to see Democrats make up all kind of excuses, y'all. Republicans in Texas, you need to go ahead and put Wesley Hunt as the forerunner so we can see what happens. This is your time, Texas, to show up. This is your time. I've already been looking at interviews of Jasmine Crockett, and she didn't switch that accent up. She talking more intelligent now. You see how she talks. But when she come out to talk to black people, she put that ghetto girl shit right back on. Oh, y'all, I can't. I've been waiting on this moment because I want to see what Democrats are going to say. They cannot run on race. I really feel, and I'm going to knock on wood for you, Wes, I really feel they're going to try to do anything to sabotage your campaign, bro.
What's going on, everybody? Appreciate you guys pulling up today. Welcome back to the channel. I am your brother Wise, man. I appreciate you guys pulling up. This brother's on to something. Down in Texas, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Jasmine Crockett is running. But on the Republican side, so is Wesley Hunt. Now, Wesley Hunt right now, he's not the front runner, but he is running. Right now, he's third place, give or take. He could be second or third place, depending on which poll you're looking at. But as of December, GOP voters in a poll, they roughly have AG Paxton with 33%, the current senator, John Cornyn, at 27%, and Wesley Hunt sits at 28%. So He's in second, but he's really, I've seen other polls where it says that he's third, but right now, basically, it's a three-way race. Paxton slightly ahead, Cornyn's weak in, and Hunt is within striking distance, but he needs some support there. Now, I'm with this brother. I'd love to see Representative Wesley Hunt win the primary, the GOP primary for senator in the state of Texas. I'd love to see it. Wesley Hunt's one of my favorite representatives out there. West Point grad, married, husband, father, handling business. Articulate. He can express himself, in a wonderful way. And I think he'd be a really good candidate. And I'd love to see this. I would love to see this. What we do know is that Democrats will find a way to pull identity politics into this. They'll talk about how, Wesley Hunt's a man. They'll talk about potentially who he's married to, because we know that Jasmine Crockett, she's willing to go that low. This is who they are. They got to find a way to divide the people along racial lines or some other category out there. Hit the like button. There's a few more flips to get into. Let's keep going.
Democrats have an affinity group for literally every demographic under the sun except for white men, essentially. Literally, they have an abbreviation, an acronym for every group. I'm A, NHPI. You're LGBTQI+. And they put you in these extremely distinct silos in the name of unity when it's actually extremely divisive.
Yeah, they're very divisive, but they understand what they're doing. They understand that the way you control people is you keep them divided. If you allow the people to come together in the different groups and you just start aligning people along the caste system, working class, middle class, the poor whites, poor blacks, same issue. Working class, blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, same issues. Middle class, poor, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. You're still dealing with the same issues, these ridiculous taxes. Regardless of who you are, we're dealing with the same things. But Democrats, they win on getting people to believe that somebody's better than the other, which is what we saw during the Civil War, right? You had poor people fighting in the Civil War, and because they were told, well, hey, at least you're better than these black folks. You had poor whites fighting for slavery, not because they were pro-slavery, but because they believed, unfortunately, that, hey, we're a little better off in the caste system. And we're still seeing this. The Democrats are still playing the same games today. Not much has changed with these people.
Democrats can't be this stupid. And I'm not talking about the voters. I'm talking about the politicians. Anytime I hear them pondering the idea of not knowing why Hispanics and black people voted for Trump, it blows my mind. These people can't be that stupid. Identity politics, that's why. Most people live their life conservatively. Now, that doesn't mean they vote conservative. It just means their lifestyle is conservative. A lot of people don't like identity politics. And when you try to tell people that live their life conservative that they can't, or that somehow it's bad or homophobic or some type of phobic, yeah, you're gonna get pushback. I don't see how the politicians don't understand this. If Democrats, to be honest, if they would just remove the identity politics, they'd be killing the Republicans, especially once Trump leaves. And man, Donnie already proved this for your ass. He wasn't out there pandering to the minorities. He was simply talking about shit that affects your household. And he won. Not just won because he was going to win in a blue state, but he took Trump voters from Trump. Because at the end of the day, people only care about their own issues.
He is right there. I do agree. I do agree with people are, disgusted with the identity politics. I don't agree with his thoughts on, Mondani up there and thinking that, he took Trump supporters. We know that's not true. We looked at the data. We've discussed that. Yeah. People are tired of just voting for people because of what they look like, how much melanin they have, whether they're, a man or a woman. People are tired of that. They want some substance. Mondani won because he offered people, at least he did have quote unquote policies. Whether he can actually come through on those, that's another story. But at least he did give people something tangible to look at or to aspire to. You don't typically get that from the Democrat Party. They just say, vote for me because I'm a black woman. You see what Jasmine Crockett's doing. She's, vote for me. Hey, black woman, first this, that, and the third. She didn't roll out one policy. Not one. Hey, if you vote for me, this is what we're going to strive to get done in my first term as senator. Nope. Just vote for me because the Republicans are racist, orange man bad, Trump bad, and I'm a black woman. Support me. That's pretty much what you get out of these people. So this dude, he's on to something. I can't say I agree with everything, but you know, there are some things in here that I agree, and that's why I wanted to add this in here today.
Comment is in response to a video I did about Jasmine Crockett and her running for the U.S. Senate, and how I said that I do not support Jasmine Crockett for a variety of reasons. I used to support Jasmine Crockett simply because she was a black woman, and I loved that video that went viral of her going off on Marjorie Taylor. And then, you know, I came to my senses and recognized that she does nothing for the state of Texas.
I'm glad she came to her senses. And I'm okay with her coming out and saying, hey, I voted for Jasmine Crockett solely because she was a black woman. I get it. There's a lot of people that voted for Barack Obama for the same reasons. Hey, this is a black guy. He's got a black wife. He smokes Newports. He plays a little basketball. He walks with a pimp. Said he smoked a little weed. He's like, you know what? I can get behind that kind of guy. You don't know what his policies are. You don't know what he plans on doing, you know, for your community, you know, or for the American people, you know, in general. But from an identity standpoint, you're like, I can get behind this. Although not a lot of substance there. And we know.
No, not to make light of what he's talking about, but there are some movies that my husband and I, you know, we kind of reference. I don't know if anybody remembers the movie Head of State, and that was with Chris Rock, right? Okay, that was one movie where he was like, yeah, they were trying to, you know, fit him in this box. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be myself. And so, you know, he and Bernie Mac, they just kind of flipped the script on everything, right? Interesting movie. And then the other movie that Eddie Murphy did, Distinguished Gentleman, right? He ran on The Name You Know. People had no idea what he looked like. He never did any debates. He literally he took the name of a former, I think it was a senator that had passed away. And because people pretty much vote similar down ballot all the time, and I'm just using that as an example here. Like there are times where voters just vote because they're told to vote that way, or their family has always voted this way, or they're just so focused on voting you're black, you're a woman, you're black, you're a man, you're you know, you have this type of orientation that I agree with. You agree more with the identity than you do with any policies that they have. They're like, we're going to commit mass genocide tomorrow, but people will probably still vote for them based on their identity. I know that's extreme, but that's weird, but people would do that. That's where we need to become more intelligent as voters. And I think people are more and more every day. And this video really proves it. And Cultural Rebirth Connections, greetings to you too. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Today, fast forward, net negative, to be honest with you. And a lot of the issues that we have, a lot of the situations that we're dealing with right now is because of that guy and that particular individual's administration. But let's let this lady continue to cook.
Now, this comment, if you look at the last part, she says, we need somebody that's going to, I believe she said, speak up and not cover up. Are you talking about speak up like she did about the wrong Jeffrey Epstein? Like, can we talk about that? And I'm going to pause you for a second, and I want to like clarify something about myself. I personally do not care who you vote for. However, I will use my platform to speak openly about the people I support and who I don't, and policies that I support and policies that I do not support. And I'm just going to call a spade when it comes to most of the black people. Underneath my comment section on that video, I have asked y'all, why do you support Jasmine Crockett? What policies do you support of Jasmine Crockett? And most of the black people in my comment section are not telling me. So my assumption is that the only reason y'all are supporting her, like I did years ago, is because she's black.
That's it. That's it. I've had similar conversations with folks and about other politicians out there, asked about their, you know, policies, you know, what's a policy? Give me one that you really like. And that you're like, you know what, that was actually huge, you know, for me, you know, and, you know, for my family. Typically, you can't get one. You can't get one, typically. These are what you would call low information voters, and the Democrats love those types of people. They love the kind of people that know nothing about policy. Heck, they don't even want to hear policy. Are you the right skin tone? Do you have the right amount of melanin? And are you the proper gender or the proper sexual orientation? That's all that really matters for a lot of these people. It's ridiculous. It's not a way to choose, the people that are going to serve you. And it's definitely not a way, to place people in positions that actually, play a role with how you move and how your life, that put people in positions that affect your life. It's just not a proper way to do it. Goodness gracious.
So your girl Jasmine Crockett is back. She has put in her bid to run for a senator of Texas. Now, people on Twitter are calling her a bad candidate, and I must agree. Instead of her coming up with policies for her district or for the Texans that she claims she loves, she's out here harassing Donald J. Trump. Instead of her being a likable candidate of Texas, she's calling Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, Hot Wheels. And let's keep it real. Members of her own party, the Democrats, they don't even like her. She's being used to push the illegal immigrant and non-American agenda, and she just doesn't see it. Do I think she's going to win? Nope.
I don't think she's going to win either. I don't think she has a snowball's chance of winning. But I sure want to see that matchup between her and Wesley Hunt. And I want to watch that debate if she will debate him. Let me know in the chat. Do you think that if Wesley Hunt wins the GOP primary in Texas for senator, do you think that we'll get a debate between Jasmine Crockett and Wesley Hunt? Do you think that she would do it? I don't think she would. I don't think she would. She wants zero smoke when it comes to that because she doesn't stand for anything. She doesn't stand for anything. She only stands for what her handlers tell her to stand for. And I'm going to assume that changes from day to day.
And the thing is, he's not wrong in that. Like I said, I ran for president and, initially I didn't have a team and then I brought people in and the next thing I know, they're like, oh, talk about this and stuff. I was like, that has nothing to do with the platform that I presented. Well, this would be better. And it was just crazy stuff. And I was just like, okay, and then shortly after that, I rescinded my candidacy. But to his point, you got people that come in and it's almost like they have their own agenda and you're just a puppet. You're just a puppet. It's crazy. I mean, that's why I started the party. And I really was like, you know what? I want people to run based on what their agenda is for their particular, town or city, because we're starting small, right? Until we get up to higher levels of office. But the handler thing, that's real.
If you're a Democrat in today's Democratic Party, you're not allowed to fire bad employees, to fire bad teachers. You're not allowed to cut wasteful spending. You're not allowed to deport illegal immigrants. You're not allowed to oppose MS-13. You're not allowed to like cops. You're not allowed to prosecute thieves who steal less than $950. You're not allowed to question vaccines. You're not allowed to oppose sex change operations for minors or transgender people in women's bathrooms or playing women's sports. You're not allowed to oppose critical race theory in our schools. You're not allowed to oppose reading porn to grade schoolers. You're not allowed to oppose racial quotas. But you are required to use certain pronouns and to believe that men can breastfeed. Now, I don't think I'm being unfair. This is what Democrats and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez now believe. And a charitable interpretation for this kind of behavior does not exist. And the American people look at it and they just want to jump out of a moving car. And that's why Democrats are polling right up there with scalp psoriasis.
Shout out to Senator Kennedy. Goodness gracious. He always leave it to him to give us a couple sound bites to laugh at, right?
But, Senator Kennedy, unfortunately, isn't wrong. There were times when you're like, oh, you're just being, extra and hyperbolic. Nobody's really believing or saying that. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And you will get shouted down if you oppose anything that they believe in. And that's what gets back to the cult mentality, right? There is an ideology within the Democratic Party that they have allowed to metastasize like a cancer. And it's really pushed people out that are very moderate Democrats, right? I mean, even RFK, he was more of a moderate Democrat. And they wanted him so out the party, he just decided to go independent when he was running for president. I was just like, you got a shot. I was like, now if people really had the choice between Kennedy and Trump, Kennedy probably would have got the nod. But the Democrats didn't want him. Why would you not want somebody who could actually beat Trump? Because it wasn't about beating Trump. In my opinion, that it wasn't about that. It was about the ideology that you hold and the actual position you wanted to put the American people in. He didn't hold the ideologies that you hold with open borders, transgender surgeries, and all of these ideologies that you hold. It's very scary. They are, in my opinion, they are destroying their party with their ideologies. Now, this next video we're going to get into it's not so much an announcement, and until he makes a formal announcement, we won't know. But Dan Bongino apparently is ready to quit the FBI.
Deputy Director Dan Bongino will leave his role in January. His tenure has been marked by controversy over his public comments and recent clashes with the Justice Department. Bongino made the announcement hours after President Trump told reporters the former conservative commentator wants to go back to his show. While announcing his decision to quit his FBI role, Bongino thanked President Donald Trump, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel. He also thanked fellow Americans. Now, even before Bongino made the announcement, President Trump seemed to have confirmed his exit when asked about it by reporters.
Oh, Dan did a great job. I think he wants to go back to his show.
A media report has claimed that Bongino recently cleared his office and told confidants he planned to leave early next year. Rumors about Bongino's resignation first surfaced in July. This is after he took a day off following a dispute with Attorney General Pam Bondi over the Justice Department's handling of the Epstein files. In August, Andrew Bailey was appointed as co-deputy director alongside Bongino, fueling speculation that his time at the Bureau was nearing an end.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that whole thing with Dan Bongino, because I'm like, you've made yourself, and this is just my opinion, a social pariah. Like, I guess he's got a following, and there will be people that follow him. Now, prior to him becoming the deputy director for the FBI, now you have to remember he was I think he was a Secret Service prior to that. So he's been around the White House. He understands DC to a point. And, you've said some things and been a part of some investigations, especially the Epstein one, where you literally sat there and said, well, we've seen the investigation and this is where it's leading us to. Where prior to that, you were like, no, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And now you're going to come back and people are supposed to believe you when you were there and you saw all the information and now we're supposed to listen to you. I don't think so. Like, to me, I don't think so. Like, you have no credibility with me personally. Like, I can't go. I cannot go because you had the opportunity. You were there to fix this, and you're there not even a year. You couldn't even make it a year. It was that bad? Did you, because nobody's firing you, you're walking away. So what was all that talk? Man up. That's all I'm saying. Man up. But you rolled out. And now you're like, because I want to get back to my podcast and do what? Talk? Really? And get nothing done? Like, I can't. I'm sorry. Look, you got there. And now you've walked away and you could have made a difference. I don't want to hear it. That's just my opinion. I just don't want to hear it. You weren't there to help anybody. You went there for your namesake. It was very selfish. But I'm glad now we know who you are. Thanks for revealing yourself. And with that, we're going to get on to our next bit of news. Now, this is pretty much it's another, I should say, chink in the armor for what's going on with the case in Minnesota. This is covering a whistleblower who said that they had brought up, the issue, hey, fraud might be going on, and it wasn't investigated.
Whistleblowers are coming forward with reports and information about rampant fraud in Minnesota. One of them has been trying to sound the alarm for years, only to be ignored while millions of taxpayer dollars disappeared. More about her story and the real victims next. We are joined today by a would-be whistleblower, someone who tried to call attention to fraud in Minnesota but was ignored. She still works in county government and wanted to speak out. But unfortunately, we do live in a world where cancel culture, doxing, violent threats have all become too common. So she asked us to help protect her identity. We're going to call her Susan. Thank you, Susan, for reaching out and for speaking with us today.
Yeah, of course.
I want to first focus on Minnesota's Housing Stabilization Services. It's the HSS program funded by Medicaid and administered by the Minnesota Department of Human Services. As you know, the program was officially shut down on October 31st after it was said to be just riddled with fraud. You saw all of this up close. You tried reporting it for years. What have you seen for yourself?
So what I witnessed firsthand, there were a lot of red flags. So I would go out to my clients' homes to be there and help them kind of navigate and go through this. And we would have a meet and greet where the service agreement / contract would be signed, and the so-called provider for the service would say, we will see you weekly. We will be emailing weekly. We will be looking for housing together weekly. As soon as we'd sign the contracts and they would leave, we would never hear from them again. I would send multiple emails, voicemails, leave voicemails for supervisors. Gone, nothing. And then I would say 2 months later, we would find out that that person is gone or this place is gone. They're no longer there. But meanwhile, the whole few months, there were 0 services provided. Then we'd start the process all over again with a new person coming out. Usually it's always someone in their 20s, probably a very entry-level position, when we'd have to sign new contracts / service agreements. And they would give us the same identical speech. We'll see you weekly. We'll be looking for housing weekly. You'll get weekly reports, weekly emails, lots of contact. No contact, ghosted. And this cycle went on for a period of 2 to 3 years, and there were absolutely 0 services provided whatsoever. And I made multiple calls to try to get answers, only to be met with no answers, no returned phone calls, no returned emails, nothing. Or I was told that person is gone.
So while taxpayers are paying the price, it seems the clients are the real victims in all of this. And I know one of the reasons you wanted to speak out. Tell us about them.
So these clients are some of the most vulnerable people that we have. You know, they are the homeless. They are the mentally ill. They are the developmentally delayed. They are physically handicapped. They can't advocate for themselves. They don't even understand most of the paperwork. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who's coming, who's going. So it's crushing for them. And some of these clients do have to sometimes pay for this. Yes, sometimes the county or Medicaid will pick it up, but not always. And they're not getting the services.
So hindsight makes a lot of things make sense, Susan. However, back then you were reporting this to your supervisors. Do you know, did anyone follow up? Did they report to government officials, to law enforcement, or anyone who could have done something about this?
I know we were all reporting at all levels, all of us, and we had several meetings discussing how we felt something very fraudulent was going on. And we all were expressing it. Clinical directors, supervisors, county workers, mental health workers, we were all reporting. But the problem is that when you have a fraudulent agency, right, and they have burner phones and they're here, they're there, they're everywhere, and you don't even know where to drive to find the person, and they don't answer, where do you go, and who do you yell at?
You've had conversations with some of these clients. What did they tell you?
So, for example, I work with this one particular client, and I go into this particular client's home weekly. And every time I talk to her, just get updates, you know, how are your services going? Is your homemaker coming out? Is your IHS worker coming out? Are all these people doing what they're supposed to? And what I hear all the time, and this is across the board, I don't even remember who is supposed to come out on what days. I'm so confused. I don't even understand any of this. I never understand who's coming or who's not coming, and it changes. And sometimes they don't come, and I don't know what's going on half the time. These are her words, and it's heartbreaking because she always starts to cry, and she has, cognitive declines and disabilities. So it's super confusing for her. So is that even fair for these people? They're at a huge disadvantage.
So with what you've seen and been through, do you think elected officials are really doing all they can to fight fraud? We know it's not just this HSS program, also a moratorium announced on another social program. After a 238% spike in applications, who do you think is to blame for all of this, and what should be done?
I don't know who is to blame per se. Do I think they're doing everything they can to fix it? No, I don't.
Do you think in a way this has been allowed to happen since it has gone on for so long?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's not allowed to happen. Yes, of course. Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I'm Nathaniel M. Olson, a disability advocate for the state of Minnesota. I've heard the commissioners and the Department of Human Services, but the one thing that I'm freaking worried about is this freaking fraud that is happening over our state, where there's 600,000 disability people in the state of Minnesota that could suffer. And sadly, it's quite interesting that we have Governor Walz speaking in front of the state and saying that this fraud is nothing but the side. But my people are done suffering. We're done with this fraud. We're done with the Department of Human Services coming up here and saying, oh, we're going to figure this out. This has been too long. The administration knew that this fraud was coming. I've talked to families, parents, everyone have been reaching out to me and saying, oh, this is what is happening to my child. This is what is happening to my child. We're afraid. There is a time to hold our governor accountable, and I'm not seeing it. This fraud is outrageous. And it makes me sad to see what's happening to our state. This was a great state. It was. But all of this fraud that is coming around here, all these excuses that is happening, needs to stop.
If you had just one word to describe the fraud that's been going on, what would it be?
Complete, total bullshit.
Sounds like that about sums it up, but obviously very frustrating from someone in your position when your job is to get these people the help that they need.
Very frustrating and makes me actually really sad. And if people could just see these clients and talk to them and hear their stories, you'd be heartbroken.
That's why we appreciate you bringing them forward. Susan, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the sad part is, individuals that, to their point, they have cognitive decline, right? And they rely on people actually following through with the services. So here's where the fraud comes in. And as the young lady was saying that, she was hiding her identity, you've got somebody that comes to them and says, okay, hi, I'm here. I will, assist in providing these services, or we have a team that's going to do that. And they're like, okay, great. They sign a contract with them. And then the people that are actually supposed to get the benefit of that person signing the contract get the benefit of, okay, we've got people that are going to come out. They're going to make sure your house is clean. They're going to make sure you get to where you're supposed to get to. We're going to make sure that all of these things happen. Nothing happens. But those people, because they had that signed contract, they're getting paid, whether they provide the services or not. That's the scam. And the alarm has been sound since 2009 in Minnesota. It's not like this just happened. That's what people need to realize. I think everybody's like, oh, this just started happening. No, it's been happening for close to, 16 years. The fraud minute. It's just exploded over COVID because they had put in, extra things, and lowered restrictions in the case of like the Feeding Our Future case, right? Where they lowered the restrictions so they could feed these children who were out of school, right? Because the schools couldn't do it. Yeah. So we have millions upon possibly over billions of dollars just in Minnesota. And it's happening in Maine, and it's also happening in Ohio. But the question is, where else is it happening that no one's said it? And I showed you guys that list yesterday of states refusing to give over information to USDA, citing privacy concerns, when there are another over 20 states that have said that they'll do it. So why are they turning over their information and they're not citing privacy concerns? But you are. And you happen to be states that have sanctuary cities, by the way, who have the most, illegal or non-citizens in those states. Those are the same states that are like, no, we're concerned about people's privacy. Now you're concerned about privacy? Okay. And it's, like I said, it's unfortunate because it's very telling of where the leadership is in a lot of these areas and how they just don't care. They really just don't care. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to get into like one or two stories from or articles from all sides. And then we will bring up our guest that's here for Mighty Men Thursday. So thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News. And we will see you on the other side.
At All Sides, we believe at All Sides, we give bias ratings for hundreds of media outlets. By freeing people from filter bubbles and providing different perspectives, we can all be better equipped to understand the world and each other. So how do we do it?
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And we're going to get into a few articles from all sides before we bring up our guest for today. So Warner Brothers Discovery urges shareholders to reject the Paramount bid. Now, if any of you may or may not know about this, Netflix was trying to buy Warner Brothers. Yeah. It's very interesting. It's like, oh my gosh, the consolidation. It's already bad enough that you have a boardroom full of people that really decide what the majority of us get to hear and listen to. But to have a place like Netflix wanting to buy Warner Brothers, that's huge, right? Because they're the distribution channel, right? They can put out the content, but then have the ability to create the content on a major, movie lot and studio and just have all of that together. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. But I'm sure the same thing happened with Turner Broadcasting when they joined the Time Warner division. In Time, you've got Time Magazine and Warner Brothers. Again, yeah, that's a part of Turner. So if Netflix were to buy that, they would in facto have a part of Turner Broadcasting or Time Warner if that was the agreement, right? But I'm just letting you know it's a lot bigger than just Warner Brothers. But that's just me. So Warner Brothers Discovery said Wednesday it's recommending shareholders reject Paramount Skydance all-cash takeover bid, arguing Netflix's proposal to acquire its studios and streaming businesses offers great certainty and value. So now they're fighting over who the shareholders should go with. Now Paramount, they of course, they've got certain outlets that Warner Brothers could take advantage of, but not the way Netflix is because they're not set up on a streaming platform and they just don't have the how should I say? I'll just use it simply the popularity. They're just not as popular. They don't have all of the mechanisms that Netflix does and what Netflix can do because Netflix they produce movies on their channel the way they've curated their channel. But again, Netflix has been a part of a little bit of controversy with some of the content that they've put out, like that Cuties movie that was very pedophilic, right? That had young girls under the age of 12 doing certain things. Yeah, there's that. There's a lot of stuff that Netflix has done, and I'm not really sure why Warner Brothers is so quick to rush to want to be a part of Netflix, but business is business. So, Paramount Skydance, led by CEO David Ellison, is backed by his father, Larry Ellison, made a bid valued at roughly $108.4 billion directly to Warner Brothers Discovery. In a letter to shareholders, Warner described Paramount's offer as inadequate with significant risk and cost, raising concerns about the structure and reliability of its financing. Warner said the Netflix deal, valued at $72 billion for its studios and streaming assets following a corporate split, is fully backed by a public company with a large market capitalization and investment grade balance sheet. Paramount defended its bid, adding it has repeatedly sought to engage with Warner to promote the offer, but did not receive a response. Warner disputed by saying it repeatedly engaged with all parties. But here's the deal. Paramount to Netflix, Paramount can't offer what Netflix has already been doing. You just can't compete with it. You do not have the outreach nor the subscription base that Netflix has that Warner basically can exploit. When it comes back to it, this is business. It's not really about the money, it's about the long term. Right. So on December 5th, Netflix announced it had reached a agreement to acquire Warner Brothers, Discovery's TV and film studios, and streaming assets for roughly $82.7 billion. The agreement followed a weeks-long bidding war involving Netflix, Paramount, and Comcast. Paramount called the process tainted and myopic. Warner's board said it had engaged extensively with Paramount, but remained unconvinced about the deal's financing and executive risk, especially after changes to the top investor group backing the bid. The decision leaves open the possibility that Paramount could raise or revise its offer before the January deadline. So The Verge, that leans left bias, focused on the back and forth between Netflix, Warner, and Paramount, and heavily quoted Netflix's response to Paramount's deal, which is called unsolicited. Outlets on the right pointed potential legal challenges the Netflix Warner agreement might face. One American News Network, that's on the right, focused on the details of competing bids and the potential impact on the entertainment industry. And it and Epoch Times, which is right, noted critics of the Netflix deal worry it could lead to overwhelmingly market dominance. The Wall Street Journal Center uncensored Warner's concern about Paramount's ability to pay and heavily cited both Paramount's and Warner's comments about the deal. Oh, and April Showers, thank you so much for joining us on X and reposting the stream. So again, to have Netflix and Warner together, it would create a behemoth because, like I said, Warner, is still a part of Time Warner, right? Which is Time Magazine, which is also a part of, that includes HBO, right? Cinemax. I don't know if anybody watches anymore. Showtime. And also anything that involves Turner Broadcasting. So not only would Netflix have, their distribution streaming online, they would have access to all of these other assets. Just saying, because Turner, you've got TNT, you've got TBS, you've got what they have with their association with the NBA as well. Like, again, it creates a behemoth when you think about the assets involved. Paramount can't offer that. Okay. They don't have that. When I say have that, they don't have what Netflix has as far as distribution. So why would Warner even be looking at you? Like, why are you even at the table? Are you here just to keep yourselves relevant? Nobody's paying attention to what's going on at Paramount Studios. Nobody. No one cares. You haven't been doing anything for a while. And everything that you have done, you've had to get the support of bigger studios to support your projects. So why? Why? It logically, business sense wise, it wouldn't make any sense. I can understand why Warner Brothers is pushing back, and they're just like, no, this is what we're not going to do. And now, next, we're going to check out Trump orders a blockade and sanction Venezuela oil tankers. This is going to get messy, and it's right before the holidays, right before the new year. This whole thing with Venezuela, it's, in my opinion, it's not going to go well. I know people are talking about regime change and all of these other things. And maybe, it's one of those situations. Why don't we just leave Venezuela alone? I know it sounds weird. I know it sounds very weird and strange. If we cannot get along with these individuals, we cannot work with them. Maybe we should just leave them alone, because the sad part is they used to be a very wealthy country. And what we need to look at is kind of like what happened and what was their downfall. Oh, yeah, that's right. Socialism. Yeah, that happened in their country, to the point where all of the leaders and people they considered elites basically told everybody else to eat cake, and they ate the animals in the zoo because there was no money for anything else, even though they have oil coming out of, their orifices, and they can have a stable country, but they're choosing not to. That's not our business. I'm just saying walk away. But that's my opinion. So President Trump on Tuesday ordered a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers entering and leaving Venezuela, and designated Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro's government as a foreign terrorist organization. Again, why are we messing with these people? And if they are a terrorist organization, let's just leave them alone. Let's just leave them alone. So in the Truth Social post, Trump ordered a total and complete blockade and accused Maduro's regime of stealing U.S. assets and engaging in terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking. He also said Venezuela is completely surrounded by U.S. military forces, which Trump warned would continue to grow unless Venezuela returned oil, land, and other assets to they previously stole from the U.S. It's unclear how many vessels would be affected or how the blockade would be enforced. The White House didn't immediately provide additional details. So, for context, the announcement followed the U.S. seizure last week of a tanker carrying Venezuela crude and the imposition of new sanctions on additional vessels and entities linked to Venezuela's oil trade. U.S. officials have said more ship seizures could follow, prompting some tankers to turn away from Venezuelan waters. The U.S. has opposed Maduro's government for years under the Republican and Democrat administrations, citing human rights abuses, corruption, and illicit trafficking. Venezuela has accused Washington of attempting to seize its natural resources. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt that we're involved in, that at all, allegedly, right? So here's the impact on Venezuela's economy. Axios wrote, the move exerts unprecedented pressure on Venezuela and threatens to bankrupt the country's already struggling economy. The Washington Examiner described Trump's actions aggressively and also said the move could place crippling economic and political pressure on Caracas. CNBC, that leans left, covered the oil market's reaction, saying the move could raise oil prices by about $2 to $3 per barrel, which is going to affect everybody, right? It noted the market is watching China, the biggest buyer of discounted Venezuelan oil, which may be reluctant to comply with U.S. sanctions. So the potential military escalation, The Hill, which is centered in the Wall Street Journal, that's also centered, noted concerns about military escalation. The Wall Street Journal wrote, a military blockade is considered an act of war, though Trump appeared to stop short of a full blockade. Now, Fox News on the right heavily cited Trump's post and discussed ongoing U.S. military campaigns near Venezuela. It described the recent U.S. seizure of the Skipper oil tanker off the coast of Venezuela, which is said secretly ferries oil in defiance of sanctions and sails under foreign flags to obscure its origins. My goodness. So pressure campaign against Maduro, Political that leans left, and The Hill highlighted pushback on the Trump administration's recent targeting of Venezuela. Political said the highlighted pressure on Venezuela has alienated some political allies. Both outlets quoted White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles saying Trump's plan to keep on blowing up boats until Maduro cries uncle. That's crazy. And people way smarter than me will say he will. Now, the BBC that's center noted both Trump and former President Biden had opposed Maduro's government. Yeah, so there's always been opposition when it comes to Venezuela. There has, but unfortunately, they kind of made their bed, and what are you going to do? It's really fascinating. It's like you have to go back to what really happened, but the short story is their government decided to destroy their country. And now they are where they are. And they need to get themselves out of this. They have the resources to get themselves out of this, but they're going to have to figure out how to do that and work with their allies if they have any left. Yeah. Because I know when we visit, my husband and I, we went on vacation, we visited Aruba, And we were doing a walking tour. One of the ladies said, yeah, sometimes you will get people that will swim over from Venezuela. It's like a 15-mile swim. And she goes, we get them and we dry them off and we send them right back home. They don't get to stay here. Period. I was like, ouch. Okay. Like they're not having it in Aruba, Curacao, or Bonaire. They're like, you need to go back to your country. You cannot stay here. So they don't have allies that close. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So hopefully things will go better for the people of Venezuela. And Cajun Lady, thank you so much for posting the stream and good morning. And thank you for posting your red, white, and blue hearts. And with that, we're going to get into our Mighty Men Thursday segment. We have two amazing gentlemen that I have met over, I would say, a little over a year ago. I met Chase first, and then I met Mr. Andrew English. And so I'm bringing them on Mighty Men Thursday to talk to us a little bit more about our financial health, right? And well-being. And you guys know I always like to bring you individuals that are going to help us, right? In any way that they can to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, especially when it comes to our finances. So let me bring them up on the stage. Hey, Chase, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Good, good. And let me bring Andrew to the stage. Hey, Mr. English, how are you?
Camera isn't on. I'm not sure why.
Good deal. So I'm going to go ahead and let you both introduce yourselves in whatever order you would like to, right? Let us know where we can follow you on social media, and then we will get into the topic of your choice.
Go ahead, Andre. You can.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Andre English. It's great to be on the show. I appreciate you. We are with the Shift Coalition, so that's where you'll be able to find us on socials. Hold on, I'm pulling it up right now so I can give you the exact details. But it is Shift Coalition on Instagram. That's SHYFT Coalition. So at Shift Coalition on Instagram. And that is our main social media. We do have other platforms, but that's the one that gets the most love and attention. You can follow us there, and then from there, you'll be able to find all of our other social media outlets. So,
Okay, great, great. Thank you for that.
there he
Okay.
is.
Hey,
Yeah,
Chase,
my
how are
apologies.
you?
I'm all right. I have two cameras on my computer, and one of them hasn't woken up yet. So
Okay.
my apologies. Went on ahead and got the second one going. Thank you for being here or allowing us to be here.
Okay. Yes, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Andre gave his introduction.
Yes, I'm Chase K. Smith, founder and CEO of the Shift Coalition, and Andre is our working harder than me president, who I'm glad was able to join us this morning. And Shift actually is an acronym spelled SHYFT, and it stands for Shift How You Financially Think. And that is what our goal is. I've been a financial strategist for almost 15 years, and I look at myself more as a financial educator than anything else. And one of the things that stuck with me as I was going through my financial career is coming to the realization that the same people who control our education system profit from our financial ignorance. And this is why none of us get a proper financial education in school, in high school in particular. Our education system could very easily be designed to everything we learn from kindergarten to 12th grade, they could pack into kindergarten and 11th grade. And then 12th grade just be all about preparing us for life, giving us that solid financial education, teaching us about credit, teaching us about taxes, teaching us about the importance of real estate, teaching us about banking and interest, all of these things, but they don't. And we're taught, because of that, we're taught to work hard for our money. And all we do is work hard for our money and pay bills and repeat. And we're never taught the power of putting your money to work for yourself. And that's what the Shift Coalition is all about. Our goal is to teach you this information, give you that financial education that you didn't receive, none of us really received, and then giving you the financial tools you need to put that education to work. And in doing so, you're able to shift how you look at banking. You're able to shift how you look at your 401k. You're able to shift how you look at, equity that you may have sitting in your home, things of that nature. And doing so is a life-changing scenario because it allows you to, as I said, let your money do the hard work and you get to focus on the important things, your family. No more dropping your children off at daycare at a few months old. You get to go sit in the classrooms with your children and see what the teachers are teaching and be more a part of their life, because you're not stressed about your finances all the time because you have help. And your help is your money working for you instead of you just working for your money. So that's what we're all about. And I appreciate you again for having us here.
Yeah, and that's definitely a mindset because to your point, people don't look at their money actually working for them. Now, I know we're in a recession. I know a lot of people like, no, we're not. Yes, we are. We've been in a recession for a while. And in that, people have still been able to make money. So for me, one of the questions I would pose to both of you is what suggestions would you give to somebody right now in this economy and ways to help their money work for them?
Our main thing is introducing people to financial tools versus investments. And financial tools are the difference, meaning if you're dealing with investments, you're turning your money over to said situation and you're waiting for that to pay you back, but it locks your money up. It doesn't provide flexibility, leverage, things of that nature. If you're using financial tools, then you still have control of your funds. You still have control of your money. But while you have control of it, it's working for you. You have these tools, whether it's trading buys, whether it's professional traders, whether it's interest bearing policies, things that we introduce people to. But these tools are what you're putting to work for you. Let the tools work. And it's not just the things we introduce people to. We teach people how to go find these. But we also make sure you understand what to look for so that you're not falling for different scams and things of that nature. I saw one of your shows about scams and how easily it is for people to get pulled in because they're preying on that lack that people have. So we teach you don't look at those things. Don't get caught into something that we teach in the community, FOMO, which is fear of missing out. If you understand what to look for, you can work through that. And it's a very simple process. But that's the important thing. Using financial tools to put your money to work for you and developing that mindset and staying in that mindset and getting away from, well, I still have to work hard.
Right,
Using
right. And
financial
Andre?
technology. Yeah, using financial technology or fintech is important.
Yes.
um, because it gives you an advantage. And then, of course, that ability to control your money and give it multiple jobs, right? To be able to allow the money that you have to work in multiple areas. So having the same dollar, it's kind of like we've grown up and we've heard about the idea of, keeping the black dollar in the community kind of idea, right? Like the more times it can circulate within the community, the stronger it is for the community. Well, that's true for the community. If a principle is a principle, it has to work in multiple areas, not just one, right? So if it works in the community to do that, then it makes more sense to have that same dollar circulate in your household multiple times, right? Doing multiple jobs in order to strengthen your household. So it's the same principle. So if we can put this stuff to work, right? And make your dollars work on your behalf, basically turning your dollar into a little mini army, going out and capturing more dollars and bringing them back, giving it a job, then you'll be better off financially. And then along with that process, if you can increase your financial literacy, the literacy part is very, very important to understand and how money works and understand how to apply it, understand charts, understand what the financial markets are, how they work, how they operate. If you can begin to understand that stuff, then it opens up so many different avenues for you. I always talk about when I began to gain financial literacy, it was at a time where my daughter was like 3 years old, right? And so she was also learning how to read. She was learning how to become literate. And I remember that I used to drive her up and down the street to see her great aunt all the time, right? She loved her aunt, right? And her whole life, we've been going up and down the street. And it wasn't until she began to start to read that all of a sudden she would say, "Daddy, that says stop." And then she'd look out of the car and say, that says car. And then it was like, that says car wash and that says Walmart. And what dawned on me is I was learning financial literacy while she was learning how to read. And what I realized is she had been driving up and down that street her whole life, but because she was illiterate, she couldn't see any of the opportunity around her. And just like her, I had been driving up and down the financial streets my whole life, but because I was illiterate, I couldn't see any of the opportunity that had been around me. So most of my life, you're sitting there thinking, man, we're struggling, or man, things are hard. And it's not hard because it's hard. It's hard because you're illiterate. And once you become literate, all of a sudden there's so many opportunities. It's like you really are walking in a blessing. You really are seeing abundance all around you because of the fact that you've gained some literacy. So that's one of the other strategic and most important things about the SHIP Coalition is we provide that financial literacy for you. We teach you how to look at markets, how to not have FOMO, how to have these things, and we provide it with live education on a regular basis.
Right. And with wealth being something that could be generational, right? It isn't, only because to your point, people are financially illiterate, right? It,
Yes.
it, it is what it is. But again, I want to get back to the economy. I guess one of my other questions is, people have talked about, buying a home and having, real estate, having that asset that can be passed down generationally. With some of the financial literacy that you've come across, what would you say would be a good starting point for people to learn more about how to make an asset like a home work for them, or even getting a home?
Um, I'll say this. When you talk about anything going from, when you talk about generational wealth, we use forever money versus generational wealth in our community. You have to bring trust into play, because just because you have a home or you have these assets, if they're not properly protected, that means nothing as far as passing it down to the next generation. We also bring in, we have a system called smart lock banking, which helps you through insurance, through the world of insurance, protect your assets. And if you tie that to trust, then you have a system that you have the trust own everything, and the trust is the beneficiary of everything. So the trust would own the home. And when as people are going through it, the families coming through, generation after generation, the trust is what owns the home. But the thing is, if your trust owns the home, now the tax laws and everything are different in regards to that. You know what I mean? So it's really a system. It's not a hard system. It's not difficult to understand. You've just never been taught it, and you don't have access to the tools that you need to make it happen. So we're not, it's when it comes to what people want to do with their money, we just encourage you to be smart. So if people like real estate, we're not saying don't invest in real estate, but there's things that you can do with your money so that when you're investing in your real estate, it's making you money in other places while it's making you money with real estate. So that's really what we're about. It doesn't matter what you want to do. We're not trying to steer you in any particular way. If you're into real estate, we encourage you learn more about real estate. We're going to help you earn enough income so that you can go to serious real estate seminars. If you're into trading, then yes, learn more about trading. But there's things you can do with your money before you use it to trade, where it's earning income for you while you're using it to trade. So that's our thing. That's what we're talking about. Just making sure you're putting your money to work in multiple places. And in doing so, it also mitigates risk. So, just as an example, if you put your money into a vehicle that's earning you 10% a year, and now you're turning around and you're trading that money, you've already mitigated your risk by 10%. So, whatever you're earning with that money, you still have to lose that plus 10% a year. You know what I mean? When you start playing with the numbers like that, you really start to see you can't lose if you know what you're doing. So that's what we're all about. Whatever you want to do, you should get educated about it. We're just going to help you strengthen your money so when you're ready to do it, you have more to deal with and it's also protected.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Andre?
So, like, just kind of a real world example without, because you were talking about real estate, right? When someone
Mhm.
is looking at real estate, they usually have to save up a down payment. Okay, this is what we mean by putting your money to work in multiple places. So what Chase was talking about with smart lock is you can smart lock that money, right? And then once you smart lock that money for the down payment, you can borrow against your smart lock. It acts as a bank, just like you would have a regular bank in essence, right? And then you can now take that money and now go use it for a down payment. But now that you've given that money the job of the down payment, the money is still growing with interest and dividends as if you never took the money out, right? So now you have a different option. Now your money is working multiple jobs. Now that money returns to you based off of the rule of 72 within say 10 years. That money is back in your account as if you never spent it, even if you never pay it back yourself. So now you've given it the opportunity to get you a house and it's still earning interest as if you've never taken the money out. That is something that's called financial intelligence, right? The ability to be able to do that. By putting it in a trust, you avoid probate, right? So therefore the trust can control, your children can't mess it up. You can say this property can't be sold for 200 years, whatever you want to do, you can make sure that your stuff is protected and it actually becomes generational. And these are the conversations that we need to begin to have, you know, around family dinner tables and so forth. But it starts with one person in the family becoming literate, right? Because
Right.
what I have found is that throughout history, it doesn't matter how far we go back, when someone becomes illiterate, it breaks illiteracy in the family forever because they begin to teach the other people of the family what to do. So most of us know about and understand, especially in our community, right? Like this idea of being literate and going to college and getting that education, but that education is designed solely to teach us how to be employed. That is literally what the function of the university system is to teach you how to get a job. It does not teach you how to get wealth. So we need another literacy, another place to come to get that literacy, right? Because that other literacy was important, right? As we moved and transitioned through slavery and all the different things that we came out of, right? Jim Crow
Right.
and civil rights and all that other stuff. But
Right.
now we are in a free enterprise economic system. We have to have another literacy that teaches us how to succeed in that space. And then I know our people will go out and do just that, right? And so that's what we provide at Shift.
I want
Right.
to piggyback on something important he just said. A lot of people feel like someone in the family has to get rich first, and then you can start the generational wealth process. Someone in the family has to become financially literate. That is what starts the generational wealth process. Because as soon as you become financially literate, you realize how easy it is to get your hands on the money you need to put to work for you. So that's a very big misconception. Nobody has to make the MBA. Nobody has to, get left the big something that great grandmom had, and nobody realized great grandmom had $1.5 million sitting somewhere. You know what I mean? That type of thing. The one who becomes financially literate, that's where it all starts. Because as soon as they see it, they're going to care enough to not let the rest of their family go through that same process. And that's what I think we really need to drive home.
And then one
Okay.
more thing to piggyback on that is that we mentioned the idea of scammers and different things of that nature, right?
Mhm.
And so this is
Yeah.
why I think, to Chase's point, that people want to see someone in the family actually get wealthy first, right?
Mhm.
So in the Bible it says that you're supposed to be a good fruit inspector, right? But being a good fruit inspector is important. But if you come across someone who has who is just starting out, but they can connect you to someone who has good fruit, right? Maybe their fruit hasn't borne fruit yet, but they're learning the same techniques as the person who has good fruit. But as long as they're willing to not be your ceiling and they're willing to connect you to the people that have fruit, then you can listen to that person as well, right? Because they're connecting you to, they're a good fruit inspector themselves, and they're connecting you to the source that has fruit. So to Chase's point, when you're out there, if you're listening to this podcast, right, and you're like, hey, there's someone in my family who's trying to teach me about crypto, but they don't really have a lot of crypto yet, or they're trying to teach me about life insurance, but they don't even have their policy yet, or whatever it may be. It may be that they're working through the process. They're at the beginning, but they're learning from a source that actually has good fruit. And so, therefore, you can go to that source as long as they're willing to pass you to it, and you can still begin the process as well. So, you don't have to wait until somebody else. It takes a long time for you to put that seed in the ground, for the tree to grow
Mhm.
up, and for fruit to be born, right? So therefore, you don't want to wait because that's a lot of years of your life that you could have been tending the soil and you could have been doing the stuff necessary for your fruit to grow. So therefore, you want to get started right away.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of how the wealth of the Rockefeller Foundation came about, right? They don't produce anything, they don't sell cars, they don't manufacture anything, yet they are one of the wealthiest families, on record that
Yeah.
we know of. And what they were able to do is they were able to put trust in place and they were able to actually develop what we call, you're not calling it generational wealth, but it that's what happened
You know,
for them.
you know what's interesting about the Rockefeller family? We actually teach about the Rockefeller family in our classes. One of our books that we recommend is What Would the Rockefellers Do? The Rockefellers use a system of insurance. We teach and plug people into the exact same type of system. When a child is born, they put an insurance policy on child's head, let's say for $1 million. That $1 million grows in interest and dividends till child turns 21. When child turns 21, child gets access to money. Even when child takes money, it still grows in interest and dividends like they didn't take the money. So now that child has X amount of millions of dollars to go grow the family fortune. If you get, Jimmy the gambler and he takes his money and goes and blows it all running around the casinos of the world, the family's like, okay, he messed up his money, but it's still growing like he never touched it. So when he passes away, that $1 million that they started with on him gave him all the money he needed in his life and added an additional 20 million in death benefit back to the family fortune. So now there's another million for 20 more kids, and they've been doing this for generations. That is why the Rockefeller family has the money they have. One person made it, and they started dumping it into the system of insurance. That's all. It's so easy. It's laughable, sis. It really is.
Oh, like
It's
insurance and trust. Those
yes.
are the two things they
That's it.
work in tandem. But like I said, they're multimillionaires. But they have no liabilities,
Mm-hmm.
right? They do not have any company. They do not have
Yep.
any employees, but they run the world. And when I
Yep.
say that, it's because their money has been working for them in politics, right? And influencing how manufacturers do their job, influencing the Federal Reserve,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just the influence that
Mm-hmm.
they've been able to attain through
Mm-hmm.
insurance and trust. Two
Yep.
things.
So
Yep.
there's something important to understand about what you just said with those last two words. And that is you said insurance and trust. And why this is important and why your listeners can know that what we're talking about works, right, is because one, banks use it and they know the bank works, right? So, but that's another thing. But the second thing is that all of those things, insurance and trust, predate the tax code. I just gave
Mm,
y'all a huge nugget.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance and trust predate the tax code. I'll let y'all look that up because I'm not a tax strategist. So I don't want to say anything on here, but I'll just say that they predate
mhm,
the tax code. And if most people realize your biggest expense of life for most people is not their home, it's the amount of income tax that they'll pay federally and state. And if you can mitigate that so that you can keep some of the wealth in your household, you already have a strategic advantage over everybody else. Because if you can understand how to mitigate taxes, right? Because that's the
mhm.
biggest expense that you will have in your life
Yeah.
besides your home, let's say, right?
Mhm.
And for most people, it's more than their home. So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
if you understand what I just said,
Mm-hmm.
these two concepts, insurance and
Mhm.
trust, predate the tax code, which
Yeah.
gives you another strategic advantage, and also gives you an advantage because when you die, if your stuff is wrapped up in those trusts that you don't own anything, you died, but the trust never did. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, the tax stuff that happens at death does not happen.
Mm,
Again, not a tax strategist. Will allow someone to consult a certified CPA. But trust
right.
me when I tell you, I just gave you a huge gem. It predates the tax code.
Wow.
And when we talk about shift, shift how you financially think. He says something important. Keeping more of the money you're making. People don't think about keeping more of the money you're making. You just make money, spend it, it goes wherever it goes, and you go make more money. If you focus on keeping more of the money you're making, you have to work less for to bring in more money. But nobody talks about that. Nobody makes people focus on those things. So if you're dealing with taxes being your biggest bill, then it just makes sense to learn how to keep more of it. And we see wealthy people not pay taxes, but we think, well, they don't pay taxes because they're wealthy. No, they're actually obligated to a whole lot more taxes because they're wealthy. Paying taxes on 10,000 versus paying taxes on 100,000 is a very big difference in the bottom line. But if you understand that the IRS says you have to pay these taxes unless, people stop at unless. We say, no, you start with unless. And you start seeing, as long as you do this and you do that, and you have these things paid a certain ways, then you get these breaks and advantages and things of that nature. And people don't want to put in the work to do that. They would rather just put in the work to make more money. That is shifting how you think. That's time out, pause, let's think about this. Let's patch up the holes in the bucket so you don't have to keep filling it up, running back and forth to fill it up. When you fill it, it stays. Now you only got one or two holes with the water running out. Now you got time to wash your face and all that stuff. You pour it in, turn around and go to wash your face. It's like, you know what I mean? That's what happens with people's finances. So we want to get people to think that way about everything. But it's just that shift. Never mind work hard. Let's focus on keeping.
Wow. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me here. I'll let you have last words.
Um, well, I'll take that first and give it to Coach Andre. But we just invite people to check us out, as he said, shiftcoalition.com, SHYFT. That is the landing page for our private online community. We teach classes. We teach about 10 classes a week, all online, all free. Come check us out. We guarantee you join us for one class, you will be back because it's impossible to miss the value that we offer. And I appreciate you for having us here, sis. Coach.
Yes, thank you.
Reiterate that, except I like to change the word from free to live, right? And I say this all the time because people don't value free, right? People don't value free. And what we provide has tremendous value. So come check us out. Come sit in on a class and learn about the different pillars, because it's not just a Shift Coalition. We actually have a system that if you apply it will actually benefit you. And it's something that you can benefit from immediately, not necessarily years down the road, right? You can benefit immediately and years down the road, but we want to get to that immediate as well. So come check us out. We'd be happy to have you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will make sure to post those links when I repost this segment of our show. So thank you again so much for joining me and joining me so early. I appreciate both of you guys.
Not early, it's late from yesterday.
Right. Well, thanks again, and looking forward to having you guys on the next time for Mighty Men Thursday. Thank you for joining us. Okay, guys, so shift your thinking. So with that, we're going to take a quick break, and I will see you guys on the other side. And we're back. Thank you so much for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. And in our last segment, that was our Mighty Men Thursday, and we had Coach Andre and also Chase Smith of Shift, SHYFT, to shift your thinking financially. I will get the acronym right, but yes, to shift your shift. I always thought shift how you think about your finances or your future. I will get the acronym down, I promise. But those were some really good, as they call them, nuggets that they shared with us just about our finances and how we can have our money working for us instead of always just working for our money. And I wanted to read some of the comments. Sincerely Lawless, thank you so much for joining us, and good morning to you and reposting the stream. Mark from the Soil and Harriet, thank you so much for joining us. And your struggle says, I want to be the first one in my family to become financially illiterate. Yes, yes, the literacy in finances is so big. And she says, shift how you financially think. Thank you. Because sometimes I have a lot going on and I'm like, I know this. Trying to just say them slow. So shift how you financially think. And it is important, right? Because learning how to use money as a beneficial tool isn't something that we're really taught, right? We watch our parents and we hope somebody in our family knows how to save properly or make the money grow and work in a certain way. These are the things that, some people hope for, but some people are just born into families that know how to make their money work for them, and they're able to, you know, have this continuous money, right? Lifetime money, right? And I call it generational. And Coach Andre referred to it as more of like lifetime finances. But yeah, so that money is working for you and it continues to work even when you're no longer here. And that's what everybody really should be focused on. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing? Right? What are we really doing? And Beyond Skeptical, thank you so much for joining us also this morning on X and reposting the stream. So quickly, I'm going to try to get into this video. It's a little bit long. Hopefully, I'll be able to get towards the end of it. But it is Chip Roy. And I know that I spoke a little bit about him yesterday. And the previous days that I spoke about him, it was regarding his Pause Act. Now, this is him on the floor of the Senate. I think it was maybe going from last week and earlier this week that he spoke on the House floor of the House of Representatives, talking about HR 6225 and his concerns about why we should actually pass this act and how beneficial it would be. And what I'm saying is, if we do not have both parties on either side of the aisle really wanting to implement something like the Pause Act or do something about our immigration laws currently as they stand, you need to start questioning these individuals that are in our House and our Senate. Do they really want, closed borders for America? And I'm talking about both parties, right? Because right now, yes, the Republicans carry a slim majority. What are you doing? This should be something that just goes through and is done. You shouldn't even need any Democratic support to get it done. But if you don't have any Democratic support, it's very, very telling. So let's check out the video.
Few minutes in the time that I've remaining to talk about another issue that is critical to the state of Texas and to this entire country. And that is the fact that America, Texas, and Western civilization are under attack from within. The cheap labor lobby, left-wing NGOs, radical progressive Democrats, Marxists, globalist organizations, the United Nations. They've mobilized a coordinated effort to subvert our security, our immigration system, to harm the American people. Particularly concerning is the threat posed by Islamists who are spreading Sharia law into Texas, who are advancing throughout the country, and who have a stated goal of undermining American life, not assimilating into it. This is a political movement, well-funded, targeted at the American people, Western civilization, our rule of law, and the Constitution. We should not be allowing more people into this country who are adherent to Sharia law, period. The Muslim Brotherhood's own motto is Allah is our objective, the Prophet is our leader, the Quran is our law, jihad is our way, dying in the way of Allah is our highest hope. Meanwhile, Europe has fallen. London, Paris, mere shells of their former strong self. You watch veterans who fought to defend the United Kingdom in World War II, those still alive tear up and cry, wondering what it was they fought for. When they watch the radical extension of Islam into the streets of London and throughout the United Kingdom. In France, a majority of young French Muslims put Sharia above their own national laws, and more than a third have sympathy for Islamification. French officials have warned President Macron that Islamists are infiltrating France's Republican institutions and are a threat to national cohesion. The authors of the report to Macron identified the Federation of Muslims of France, FMF, as the main French emanation of the historic Muslim Brotherhood, which was founded 100 years ago to promote a return to core Islamic values. They said the FMF controlled 139 places of worship in France and a further 68 affiliated, in all around 7% of the total. The organization ran some 280 associations. 7 out of 10 French voters would back a ban on the Islamic veil in public because of what's happening in France. In the United Kingdom, Muslims are increasingly turning to Britain's Sharia courts, which are not part of UK law and operate as informal bodies. The number of Sharia courts in Britain has grown to 85 since the first began operating in the country in 1982. Polls have found that 41% of the British public believe that Muslim immigrants have had a negative impact on the United Kingdom. Nearly half think that Muslim women are pressured into wearing the hijab, and almost a third think that Islam promotes violence. Parallel legal systems are not keys to a thriving society. There must be one rule of law for all of the people. All the way back in 1991, a lot of people won't know this, the Muslim Brotherhood issued a memorandum about North America, detailing a plan for, quote, the enablement of Islam in North America, establishing an effective and stable Islamic movement led by the Muslim Brotherhood, which adopts Muslims' causes domestically and globally and works to expand the observant Muslim base. It was a coordinated and specific effort to advance Islam into the United States. Our founders did not envision a nation that remotely resembled today's Muslim world and the radical elements of Sharia. America was founded as a nation grounded in a distinctly Judeo-Christian history and understanding of human nature. It was the United States, it was Great Britain, that led the ending of slavery. John Adams said, one great advantage of the Christian religion is that it brings the great principle of the law of nature and nations to the knowledge, belief, and veneration of the whole people. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams hinted at the incompatibility of America's Republican virtues with the values of Muslim nations after meeting with the Islamic ambassador about the Barbary state's inclination to make war upon nations that did them no wrong, after they were informed it was a requirement of the Quran. Jefferson's papers in 1786, he wrote, quote, we took the liberty to make some inquiries concerning the grounds of their pretensions to make war upon nations who had done them no injury, and observed that we considered all mankind as our friends who had done us no wrong, nor had given us any provocation. The ambassador answered us that it was founded on the laws of their prophet, that it was written in their Quran, that all nations who should not have acknowledged their authority were sinners, that it was their right and duty to make war upon them whenever they could be found, and to make slaves of all they could take as prisoners, and that every Muslim who should be slain in battle was sure to go to paradise. That's Jefferson in 1786. Our founders knew that Sharia law was not consistent with Western civilization and our values. Sharia law is a problem that is growing throughout the United States and certainly growing in Texas. My home state bore the brunt of a 4-year mass migration invasion under the previous administration. But there's been a quieter one of Islamists leveraging our immigration system and corporate interest to extend and use diversity visas, chain migration, H-1B visas, to flood our country with people who don't believe in it and have no intention of assimilating into it. A new Muslim community in Texas, not even a few days old, 150,000 square foot Muslim community center was opened in Houston. Epic City in Plano, outside of Dallas-Fort Worth, has raised all sorts of questions about their intentions to create a effectively Muslim-only community where Sharia law no doubt will be practiced. Now they've renamed it the Meadow rather than the East Plano Islamic Center, but they continue to develop and grow it. Even as there are almost 300 mosques in Texas and more mosques being built in Texas every day than any other state in the union. But meanwhile, let's look at what's going on in the United States broadly. Our nation's foreign-born population has reached 51.9 million people, comprising some 16% of our population. We're at the highest levels of percentage in our history. The last time we had a similar level of foreign-born population, in roughly 1920, we froze immigration. And largely for about 40 to 50 years, we froze it. And then it has been exploding over the last 50 years. I've introduced legislation called the Pause Act to pause immigration and to pause it until we get our hands around all of the problems that are currently plaguing our immigration system. The abuse of birthright citizenship, to have profit-centered ways to create American citizens by people coming here, coming across the Rio Grande, having children, making citizens that then can use American resources, our hospitals, our schools, our legal system, our welfare. We continue to allow a broken visa system to have extended family members be brought into the United States expansively and purposefully. H-1B program has been exploited and abused now for years and must be abolished or massively reformed. We obviously have still a very badly broken border that is only currently being held in check by a president and by leadership in the administration who are devoted to doing it and are empowered to do it. But all of the ways in which Biden, Mayorkas, and that entire administration allowed our border to be wide open and have 10 million flood our country, all of those things still remain in place statutorily. Congress could fix it. We haven't. The House passed legislation 2 years ago, what was in that Congress, H.R. 2, to meaningfully change the laws so that it can't be exploited to endanger the people. We have not brought that back up again this year. We should. We should codify these changes. Our priorities matter. The results of this are stark. Thanksgiving week, we saw what happened with the West Virginia National Guard service member, Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, who was 20 years old, Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf, 24, savagely ambushed and shot blocks away from the White House. Specialist Beckstrom tragically lost her life. The attacker, Ramanullah Lakenwal, an Afghan national who was imported through the Biden-Mayorkas illegal Operation Allies Welcome Parole program, drove from Washington state to carry out this diabolical act in our nation's capital. According to DHS, over 5,000 Afghans brought to the United States through Operation Allies Welcome had either national security or public safety concerns. We are importing people who want to undermine and destroy our country. And both sides of the aisle have been guilty of this. This is not a debatable reality. It's literally occurring. For us to survive, we have to act. We need to pass the Pause Act. We need to pause immigration. We need to pass legislation like the bill that I introduced to preserve a Sharia-free America that would prohibit the entry of people that are known to be adherent to Sharia law, which is deeply in conflict with our values and our laws. We should take away the tax status of CARE and other radical organizations with ties to terrorists, and a vast network of well-funded organizations using American tax dollars, United Nations funds, wealthy donors, George Soros funding, foreign funding, nation states, all pouring in to organizations and NGOs driving this agenda. The Marxist, Islamist, red-green alliance that wants to destroy America as we know it. I introduced legislation to take away CARE's tax status. Why are we giving them tax breaks to try to destroy America? Which brings me to the final point, which I was alluding to before on H.R. 2. That is legislation designed to codify effectively what President Trump is doing. To stop the abuse of parole, to stop the abuse of asylum, to stop the abuse of catch and release, to stop all of the abusive ways in which an exploited border can undermine our security and endanger us. We cannot rely on the administration to do it. Congress needs to act. Congress needs to codify it. Congress needs to change it. And states and state leaders need to stand up and use the legislation that we did pass in January to enable suit against the federal government when they fail to secure the border that we included in the Lake and Riley Act, because states can no longer be beholden to a federal government that refuses to secure the border. We have a reprieve under President Trump. That reprieve will no doubt one day come to an end, and states must be empowered and have leaders who are willing to stand up and fight. States need to challenge things like Plyler versus Doe, the Supreme Court ruling that said that we must have taxpayer funding going to pay for the education of illegal alien children. you want to choose to do it, that's for you to decide. But we should not be forced to use taxpayer dollars to do that, and we should challenge that Supreme Court ruling, and we should stand up to defend our country. The fact is, you can't win a war that you're not willing to recognize exists. And it is undeniably true, after the election of the mayor in New York, Mamdani, with what's going on in Dearborn, with what's going on in Minneapolis, with what we're seeing happen in Texas, in Dallas, in Houston, what we saw unfold in London, in Paris, that there is an attack on the Western way of life, and we must stand up and defend it if we're going to be able to pass down a country to our kids and grandkids. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Yeah, and he is not wrong. He isn't wrong. And I've said this, I'm grateful that Chip Roy definitely wants to put in place the Pause Act, because I've been saying we need a moratorium administratively to close our borders. And the thing that he didn't mention, he didn't mention the rape and abuse that goes on with this illegal immigration. What he didn't mention was that there are people that are coming here the right way, okay? And they see everybody coming here the wrong way, getting benefits where they can't get those benefits when they come here the right way, by the way. Yeah, there's that part. And are we respecting those individuals that actually do want to be Americans? He called it out. He said it's both sides of the aisle, you guys. And I will make sure to share this with you, just kind of, it's pointing out key points from this video, and also the legislation in the Pause Act, so you can really see what he's talking about, and birthright citizenship has been completely exploited. It's been exploited since its inception, and that's why there was such a large debate on it when they were putting it in place, because they did not want it to be taken advantage of. But again, like Representative Chip Roy said, here we are. You cannot deny that we are in a war, and war is with words. It's not with tanks and guns. It's words. The United States has been at war since its inception, because since the inception of this country, freedoms have constantly been challenged, because you do have people here with the mindset they want other people to be their slaves. We have a caste system of race in this country that is undeniable. And now we're bringing people over here that actually do practice slavery in the countries that they left. They do, still to this day. They practice slavery in Somalia. They do. And from some of these other places that they're coming from, they practice slavery. I am very grateful that Donald Trump has put a moratorium on about 30 countries and denying them entry and denying their refugee or asylum status. You cannot come here. You don't want to come here to assimilate. It's weird. You want to come here and destroy this country and make it like the country you left. Why did you leave there? If you love it so much, go back to it. That's all I'm saying. You have every opportunity to go back. And Oversight says, the last time I checked, 67% of public housing is occupied by foreigners. And that's very sad. And that is very, very sad. And it shouldn't be. But hey, it's still up to us to make the changes, right? Because it is about we the people. So with that, we'll end our broadcast for today. Thank you so much for joining me here on Mighty Men Thursday. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.